Hey, guys, what's going on? Hey, my lighting today is horrible. Whoa, I look like I'm all washed out here. I was actually trying to fix that before the show. However, I couldn't. So I'm just gonna deal with the rather washed out look on my face today. I don't know what's going on, but anyway, hey, welcome, guys. So we're doing another one of these pop-up shows. Let me get my chat up here so I can see who's in here. Hey Faye, how you doing? What's up, Jackie? Nice to see everybody. I see Dire Straits. I see my girl Ruby. Who else do we got here? We got 41 people. Yep, Neo's in the house. We got Mikey Morales with his coffee and pizza. Let's we got Turk here. Let's Profit. What's going on, man? So the gang's all Moet. Good to see you. The gang's all here. So listen, guys, we got a good one for you today. We're calling this, of course, another one of these pop-ups. I'm slowly transitioning the pop-up name to instead. I'm going to start using real-time true crime. I think that has a nice ring to it, and coined it the other day. So today is a good one. We are going to be talking about I'm going to give you guys a report on a recent conversation. I had this conversation 2 days ago with another one of David Berkowitz's childhood friends. I mean, this is unbelievable what's going on. The things that we've accomplished. Notice that I have said we, not I, we, because it's not me, it's we. Oh, by the way, I just want to let you guys know in the description of the video, you'll find a link if you want to join the stream to ask any questions, and I'm also going to be putting it in the chat right now. Stuart, I see you're in the stream. I'm not ready for you yet, buddy. So what I'm going to do, my friend, is I'm going to remove you because I don't want you. Whoop, I'm going to do it again because I don't want you there distracting me while I'm going to announce when to call in if you want to. Okay. But y'all know that I'm a little anal retentive, a little ADD with this stuff, and I like to get things rolling before we start rapping. So yes, we are talking today another report from one of Berkowitz's childhood friends. This is one of the same crew. We have talked already to John Comparetto. We've talked to John R. John R. is going to remain, his last name will remain anonymous, although he's probably watching. And big shout out to John R. John R. will make an appearance today. Some of his words today will make an appearance. And of course, we spoke to Maria, a female friend of Berkowitz's. And, these guys were kind of hidden all these years. We never knew that they existed in a sense. It's really amazing when you think about sociologically what's going on here. And of course, that's what I am super interested in. I have my boy Craig Fitzgerald talking about the occult stuff, Eric talking about the international conspiracies and all that fun stuff. But you know me, I'm all about the people on the ground. And I find this story extremely fascinating sociologically. We're dealing with a bunch of just normal white ethnic kids from the Bronx in the 1960s and 70s. This group was diverse. This group included Orthodox Jews, secular Jews in David Berkowitz, white ethnics in Ed Snedeker, Italian, right? Comparetto and John R. Of course, John R. wasn't an early friend. He came in a little later, but it's extremely interesting how all of these people were friends together. It's almost like a New York story. If you didn't have Berkowitz ending up as a serial killer, right, involved in Son of Sam, this would almost make a movie, right? Like all these kids, friends in Co-op City, they all go their way, their separate ways, but they all kind of remain in the same sort of vibe. They became cops, firemen, right? Just extremely interesting all around. And this is a perspective, of course, that we have never gotten before. Yeah, sure. You can go onto YouTube and you can watch psychologists and psychiatrists try to talk about Berkowitz, but they didn't know him. They're just getting their information out of a book. Okay. We're actually speaking to the people who knew him, who had an insight, who grew up with this guy, who were getting letters from him in the army, who were dealing with him, as we're going to learn today, while he was going out and shooting people in the Son of Sam. Now, don't get too excited. That story is not going to be too extensive, okay? But we do have a story for you today. And so the point being that I'm just highly fascinated by these people, by these characters, and you're never going to get a better insight unless you speak to Berkowitz himself. And even then, I'm not so sure, because how objective can he be, right? And especially since a lot of these guys are trained law enforcement officers, it adds even more richness to this whole thing. So I am extremely grateful that I hooked up with all these guys. Of course, this was started a couple people. Well, Gary got me Maria, and of course, Neo introduced me to the whole Yonkers police people, and that's what opened up, guys like Comparetto and John R. and Jim Fay. So it's really unbelievable what's been going on. And yeah, May Beth, I see eggs, the bakery boy. Well, not only are we going to talk about this cat today, we're going to name him, and we're going to show you a picture of him. This was actually one of the most shocking parts of the conversation that I had with this gentleman the other day. So I don't know who went to Sacred Heart. Eggs did not go to Sacred Heart. Okay, just so we're all clear. I don't know, Dire Straits, you're probably talking about someone else. I generally don't pay too much attention to the chat. So again, hey, what's up, Fallout Zone? I did a video, a gardening video today, and Fallout Zone was my only audience member. It was kind of fun. Alice, we're not ready for you yet. Again, I'm going to put the link in the chat here for you guys, but please don't call in until I tell you. So Alice, no offense, but I'm going to remove you because just seeing you there is a little distracting while I'm trying to do my thing. All right. So let me set this up for you. So this guy who I spoke to, he needs to remain nameless. Okay. Now, you can not believe what I'm telling you today in the story, but I guarantee you I'm telling you the absolute God's honest truth, that I had this conversation with this person and I took extensive notes. And his story, I'm not going to put out lies because John Comparetto is going to watch, and John R. is going to watch, and Jim Fay is going to watch, right? And all these guys knew each other. So the minute that I start trying to play, right, if I even thought that way, which I don't, but the minute that I start doing that, I'm gonna get my a new asshole by these guys. You know what I'm saying? So this guy unfortunately did not want to. I would have loved to have him on tonight. In fact, it was extremely interesting conversation. And this guy was super interesting because he was the Orthodox Jew in the group. And remember that David was also a Jewish secular Jew, of course. So you had that dynamic happening between this individual, who I'm not going to name. I'm not going to even put a fake name to. I'm just going to say my contact, this individual, blah, blah, blah. Okay. So why don't we just get started? Okay, so as I always like to do with these videos, especially these pop-ups, but what I've taken to do is making, just short videos that I can kind of narrate over. So one of the things that I want to just sort of, I'm going to ease you guys into this, all right? But I want to talk to you about Co-op City itself. Now, this Co-op City the name has been bandied about for a long, long time on this show. And unless you're from the Bronx, you have no idea what Co-op City is all about, right? So I just want you to understand, because a lot of people have been saying recently, especially, let me just get this up, in light of the Neto video that's come out, right? See, so now we're getting the pushback, which is okay. We expected it on such a game-changing and paradigm-shifting video as the Neto information. Remember, we've changed the paradigm here. And in fact, it's almost like where the hell do we go from here, right? But so some of the pushback has been, well, Berkowitz could have driven up to Yonkers while he was living in the Bronx and perpetrated the Neto attacks a year and a half before he moved to town. Well, Co-op City in the Bronx area where Berkowitz lived is right. Oh, I'm sorry. Let me just get this back up. Is right up here in the sort of where it says 11. Okay. Now I'm not so sure that uh, I don't think that my pointer is pointing, unfortunately, which sucks. Let me see if I can change that. Give me a second here. Okay, but unfortunately, then it makes it smaller. Okay, there we go. We'll do it in this view so you can see my pointer. So right here is where Berkowitz was living as when he got back from the army in this general area around here. And right here is Co-op City. Co-op City literally is in the East Bronx. This is where I'm at in the Bronx right now in this general area. Okay, right around here. And Yonkers would be like the area where Berkowitz lived would be like proportionally speaking up here, right? You can see my pointer like beyond the map. So it's unlikely that a kid from Co-op City, a man living in Co-op City or in Pelham Parkway would know about the Netto family on 18 Wicker. It's more likely that he joined that campaign. But Co-op City is essentially a very interesting place. Now, it looks extremely dystopian, okay? What this was a housing project in a sense for middle class people. It's called the Mitchell Lama houses. Okay, and I actually lived in Mitchell Lama housing for 12 years. I lived in a complex very similar to this called the Amalgamated, which is over in the West Bronx. But this was built in the late 60s, early 70s, and it was intended as a community for the middle class, the striving middle class, not poor people, and obviously not rich people. Okay. But in Co-op City, what happened was because the rents were so affordable. Sorry, this is the cover of Rush Farewell to Kings. The Co-op City always reminds me of this album cover for some reason. It's a very dystopian place. Nobody got offended who lives in Co-op City, but Co-op City originally was a place called Freedom Land. And Freedom Land was a huge amusement park that was built to mimic. This is an old ad for it. It was actually all of America, okay, within the confines of what later became the area of Co-op City. They built a whole amusement park where you could travel from like state to state, right? It was just basically a scaled down version of the country, Freedom Land. And so this was there, and Freedom Land went broke. It was so expensive to build, and here's the only remnant of it, right? This rock with a plaque on it. It was so expensive to build, and it made very little money because it was like in the ass end of the Bronx. Who the hell was going up there? So it was a failed experiment, and they took that land and they built this what became Co-op City. And again, extremely dystopian looking. But one thing that I have gleaned from speaking to people from Co-op City, all of Berkowitz's friends, is that it was a community of that was very tight knit, very close. The people there were all sort of similar, usually at white ethnics, middle working class and middle class, lower middle class Jewish families. And there was a lot of politics there. These people were actually true liberals back then. They were real, like they were into peace, right? Unlike the liberals of today that love war. They're like rabid, frothing at the mouth warmongers. I don't understand what happened to politics. Actually, I do. After 9/11, after the inside job of 9/11, everything became flipped. It became a uniparty state. Democrats loved war. Republicans loved surveillance. And now they've kind of like all meshed into this one big mess that unfortunately is like now starting to like really glom onto our necks, and they're starting to kill us. I mean, I don't know about you, but I opened up my electricity bill the other day, and for the same usage, it was 3 times as much. And I'm hearing that's happening everywhere. And like, what's going to happen in my building? The electricity is going up, and now all the prices are going to go up. Laundry is going to go up. Everything's going up. They're killing us by design. But anyway, so you seeing here some people from Co-op City, peace, and it's funny because I have this thing where like people back in the old days looked so old. So I bet you this was like, a 20-year-old guy. This is a teenage woman right here. And this person's like, I don't know, 18, 19 years old. People just looked so old back then. But this was the milieu in which David Berkowitz was living. He was living around strivers, people who cared about their lives, people who were into family, people who were into life, right? This was not a housing project for poor people. It still isn't to this day. So we remember when speaking to Maria and a lot of Berkowitz's friends that there were just tons and tons of kids around. So no wonder Dave had a lot of friends, because he was actually a social, gregarious, nice guy. So he attracted people to him, which is, of course, something that we never hear from the armchair psychologists or even real psychologists who get all their information from reading Klausner's book or maybe Dr. Abramson's book, which we know are all fake. Berkowitz did not have these issues growing up where he slammed his head and he had dark visions and nightmares. That just was not true. We're going to learn today what kind of a person he is, and it jibes and corresponds to everything that we've already heard about his early years. But today we're going to get a different perspective, because this person was almost, even though they were friends with Berkowitz, they were almost like took a bird's eye view of the guy. They were able to like step back and be objective and kind of analyze the person in real time. So I got a lot of great insights. So let's just get started, shall we? So update, and the egg stuff is going to come. It's going to come soon enough, guys. I know that most of you here are interested in eggs. Got 146 people watching. I'm very, very grateful for that, of course. So let's just get started. All right. So updates from a friend from Berkowitz. So we're going to start with the co-op city years before the Army. And I'm just going to go through these and give a little explanation. And I keep things very simple for you guys. Okay. So, yeah, hold on one second. There's just a comment that's really good. Just Joe B, shutdown of Indian Point raising electric bills too. I mean, I'm torn, right? That was Chernobyl on the Hudson. But yeah, they turned it off, and now my electricity bills are 3 times as high. New York's not going to survive, guys. Like, we all got to get the hell, either fight and remove these parasites, or we got to get the hell out of here. There's just no middle ground with these people anymore. All right, so my contact, the person who I had this conversation with, okay, moved into the first building in Co-op City. In fact, his family was one of the first. He said his grandmother was the first person to move into Co-op City, and they were very, very. Then he moved in very soon after. Now I spelled this wrong. My apologies. Okay, but he met Ed Snedeker. Okay, now where have we heard that name before? Well, Ed Snedeker, by all accounts, was Dave Berkowitz's best friend. Okay. Everybody, all these guys say that Ed Snedeker was the one that was closest to Dave. And we're gonna call him Dave. Okay. So yes, McKinney. They built Co-op City starting in the 60s, and they ended it in 1973. The year that I was born was the year the last building went up. So he met Ed Snedeker. Okay. That was the first person that my contact met. Through Ed Snedeker, that's how he met Dave Berkowitz. Okay. Dave moved into building 3 soon after my contact moved in. So my contact was there first, met Snedeker. Then they all ended up. I'm not exactly sure how that works, so I'm not even going to go there. But somehow or other, Dave moved in after this guy had already met Snedeker. Snedeker maybe already knew Dave. I'm not quite sure. Maybe one of these guys, Comp, or another one of these guys can chime in if they're watching right now. He said something that everyone says about Dave. He was a nice guy, happy-go-lucky, sweetheart, one of the nicest people imaginable, right? He said he had a telltale giggle. He would always laugh, always trying to be funny and seeing the light side of life. And in a way, you can kind of see that in Berkowitz now, because he always kind of has like a little smile on his face. And maybe people can armchair psychology that into saying, well, see, he's psychotic, he's always smiling, he's always got a giggle on his face. Well, now we know that that's actually just a characteristic of his personality. He was like that before he became Son of Sam. right? And my contact thought that they'd be best friends. Why? Because they were both Jewish. Okay. It's so interesting. The Bronx, again, getting back to the sociology, you had Jews mixed with white German, Dutch ethnics, mixed with white ethnic Italians. I mean, and they were all best friends. It didn't matter. And that's how I grew up as well in the Bronx. I mean, I often say I grew up telling truly tasteless jokes on the stoops with my black, Chinese, Korean, Japanese, Indian, Israeli friends. And we would say, I would give the worst black jokes to my black friends. They would say the worst Jewish jokes and Puerto Rican jokes to me. And you know what we did? We would crack up. That was the ethos of the 80s. I mean, for those of you in Gen X, you remember how cool it was. And it's unfortunate that Gen X, really, you guys became the biggest fucking Karens out there. Excuse my language, but I'm appalled at my generation. But they never achieved that status. Okay. They never became the best friends that he thought. There was always a distance, an aloofness. They were still good friends, but never achieved that clicking into the best friend status. All right. So this was an interesting insight. He said that Dave was very protective of women. In fact, his friend Lenny Dapolito, there's another name, right? And that name has come up. There's another Italian name, right? Who was like best friends also with Dave, right? Lenny Dapolito had a sister with long brown hair, an older sister. And maybe she was younger. I'm not quite sure. I think she said older. I don't have my notes in front of me. It doesn't really matter. But Dave was extremely protective of her. That's what he told me. He didn't go into details, but I find that interesting because by all their accounts, people who worked with him at the post office during his Son of Sam years, if you read old articles about him, that he would take women out and walk them to their cars and protect them. In fact, this story here came out in one of my member exclusives, but some of my subscribers will remember my interview with Dave, the guy who was picked up by Sammy White in Times Square and was brought up to Yonkers and ended up in Ace Brown's apartment, living there for a couple of months. What was my point? My point was, I kind of forgot. Dave, I forget. Sorry, guys. I just lost my train of thought there. So anyway, it was something having to do with something what I was talking about before. I'll put it in the chat when I listen back to this. So anyway, he was very protective. So Dave and his dad did not. So here's some interesting psychology. Okay. Dave and his dad did not get along too well. The exact quote was, "There was no love lost." Now, this was a guy, my contact, who would sleep over Dave's house. He would go down to Dave's father's, Nat Berkowitz's, hardware store down in Soundview in the South Bronx, where he said that Nat Berkowitz worked 6 days a week for close to 12 to 14 hours a day. So Dave was always on his own. He was the original latchkey kid. Okay, which is highly interesting, in my opinion. All right. Too many Daves in this story. Hold on one second. Let me too many Daves. So I think that's like a Kids in the Hall, a hall skit. Too many the Daves I know. Anybody ever watch Kids in the Hall out there? Great show. All right. So here's another insight into Dave's personality. Dave would hardly get upset. It was like not in his constitution to get angry. He would avoid conflict at all costs. And he had, again, this telltale giggle that was going on. Okay. Now, my contact saw him angry once and only once. A man was stabbed at Co-op City. Okay. Unrelated to Dave. Dave didn't know the guy. It was like an old man who had been mugged and stabbed, and they found out about it. And And Dave wanted to find the guy and extract street justice, essentially. So that was the one and only time that my contact saw Dave get angry. He was like, he said he was really angry at this, which speaks to, actually, and bespeaks, to use my boy Craig Fitzgerald's terminology, it bespeaks that Dave had a sense of justice. He had a sense of right and wrong, right? So that's kind of interesting. All right, let's carry on. All right, here we go. Again, getting back to Dave and his relationship with girls, because remember, he was the original incel. According to everybody, he could never get a girl. He was afraid of them, deathly, pathologically afraid. Well, according to my contact, Dave had no problem with girls. In fact, he would brag about getting the Puerto Rican girls drunk on rum and bringing them to the rooftop of his apartment to have sex with them. All right. So Dave was getting laid. Yeah, he would have to get girls drunk. All right. But, I have a feeling that happened a lot back then. So it wasn't like highly unusual or anything. All right. So here we have, there's somebody who came in. I'm just going to let them know in the chat to get ready, because I will take my first caller. So, Nick, I see you're in here. Get ready. Please get your camera on. Please get your audio working. We're going to get to you in about a minute. So Dave loved the Puerto Rican girls. It's kind of like my dad, right? These Jewish guys, they love those big butts. What can they do? What can I say? All right. So Dave had no problem with girls. Okay, now we're starting to get a little older here. He said he was somewhat disillusioned before the army. Okay. Now, we've spoken to other people about this, and we learned that he learned that he was adopted before he went to the army. So I didn't get into it with this contact. I probably should have, and I still can, of course, because all these guys I can talk to. I can just pick up the phone. That's the beauty of this series, right? We're now hooked up. We're now like a community. But here he said something that was at odds with what we heard before. Remember, John Comparetto told us that and we're not saying that John was lying to us. In fact, quite the opposite. He just didn't know about this, according to this contact. That's the long and short of it. But we remember that John Comparetto told us that Dave was straight-laced as hell, never smoked a joint, never did any drugs, was highly anti-drug. According to my contact, Dave got high before the army. He smoked weed, not hard drugs, but he got high before the army. And John Comparetto specifically, my contact made sure to tell me this, that John Comparetto did not know about this. Okay. So this is interesting. We're getting insight. Okay, now we're getting to eggs. Everybody get yourself ready. Now, I don't know, how should I preface this? Should I say that you're all going to be let down? Should I say that the information that we're going to learn is at odds with some of the things that we may have learned in the Ultimate Evil? Should I tell you that straight up, or should I wait for the surprise? Anyway, let's get started with eggs. All right. So how did this come up? Well, first of all, let's learn who Eggs was, according to Maury Terry. All right. So this was in the epilogue of the Ultimate Evil. And this is talking about Brother John. Okay. So, but before Brother John's relocation, he inadvertently made an acquaintance who years later provided a conclusive link between Berkowitz and the cult. So here's Maury saying conclusive, right? Which again, then made us, the reader, think that this was the absolute truth. Between Berkowitz and the cult. Unaware of the import of his anecdote, Brother John spoke of a teenager he once met in the car home, a young cultist he later drove to the Northeast Bronx. The Northeast Bronx is where Co-op City is. He described him well, but couldn't recall the name. However, he did remember dropping off the youth at a specific bakery on Bure Avenue, which is where Donna Loria lived. It was a German place, and his parents own it. All right, so we're looking for a German name. Brother John said, in fact, and unknown by Brother John, the German bakery was then owned by the parents of one of David Berkowitz's best friends. That's an important term right there, best friend. That doesn't leave any room for wiggle room there. He's saying that Eggs was David Berkowitz's best friend. Keep that in mind. Okay. Best friend. Berkowitz and this youth maintained their relationship from Berkowitz's mid-teens until his arrest. In other words, although Berkowitz says he didn't join the cult until 1975, he and the bakery boy were close friends. At the same time, the other teen was already involved with the group and present in the car home. Well, let me ask another question. What group? We've already shown that there was no Son of Sam cult. There was no 22 Disciples of Hell. We have conclusively shown that that was all about the demons that these guys were like worshiping and pretending they were and assigning animals to these demons and all this weird stuff. That was what the 22 was about. Okay. But this bakery boy was at the car home and 8 years before the Son of Sam shootings. Okay. So this was the person that they called Eggs. Now, here's where it gets interesting, so the takeaways from this that I want you to remember. Maury Terry said it's conclusive. Okay, leaving us no room. Leaving us no room for wiggle room there. He said that they were best friends. Okay, again, that's a very definitive statement. Okay, and he said that here, like, and this is confusing too, because if the egg story is true, and Berkowitz met the Cars, like if he could have met them in the late 60s, right? Because Eggs was hanging out with the Cars. Well, why did he need to meet Michael Carr in 1975 at the Floating Coven party? I'm just saying, we as people who read The Ultimate Evil, we better get a lot more discerning in our reading comprehension, because just within these two paragraphs, there's already glaring contradictions, right? And now that we're going to learn the truth about this guy, or the truth according to the people who actually knew him, we're going to show you a picture of Eggs and all this kind of stuff. Well, maybe Maury led us down the wrong road once again. So how did this come up? So we're going to get to it. All right. So I asked the contact about the arson fires, and he was unequivocal. He said, Dave did not start those fires. Okay. None of us started those fires. We don't know who started them, but he said that rumor had it that a guy named Von Mueller was starting them. So as soon as he said Von Mueller, I did my whole holy shit bit, right? I said it probably 10 times. And the guy was like, why the hell are you saying holy shit 10 times? And I was like, well, I told him the story. I said, when I started this video series, I was taken under the wings by the Maury Terry people. And you all who have been with me the whole year, you know the deal. You know that I started hanging out with Carl Denaro, and I got involved with all his crew. And as a result of those interactions, I had a lot of behind the scenes conversations with people. And the name Von Mueller came up in those months. I never reported on it because we had never heard it before, and I had never heard the name again. It was a speculation. But we heard from a guy from the East Bronx who told us that a guy named Von Mueller was Eggs. Okay. Now, Eggs' parents owned a Dutch bakery, a German bakery. Von Mueller is a German name. Okay. Now, this Von Mueller character, who has been named as Eggs by the Maury Terry people. Okay. And I don't care what they say tomorrow. Okay. Von Mueller is Eggs. Von Mueller was Ed Snedeker's friend. Okay. This is going to become important. He was not a friend of Berkowitz. We're going to talk about this in a second. But before we do that, let us look at Von Mueller. So this is a great photograph. I mean, this is like real history right here. This was a photograph sent to me yesterday. I didn't get this offline. I didn't find this on the internet. This was sent to me by one of the guys in this auxiliary fire crew. And check it out. It's 44. I mean, how perfect is that, right? So anyway, here's Ed Snedeker right here. This is Ed Snedeker. Okay, this is a personal photograph. And Ed Snedeker's father was a fireman, and he was killed in the line of duty. So Ed Snedeker was taken under the wings of all of these older firemen So that's why this guy has his arm around him. Ed Snedeker was like a real beloved of person here, right? So von Mueller is right here. Okay, so we're gonna blow up on him. This is eggs. There he goes. So there's von Mueller. I was again sent this by the person, one of these people. I don't want to show him because he doesn't want to be identified. But he sent me this email yesterday with this personal photograph where he said, here's von Mueller. Here he is right here. Now, doesn't this guy look exactly like John Carr? I mean, I don't know, folks. This is curious. This guy looks, it's a spitting image of John Carr. Same Asian eyes, same hairstyle. But regardless of that, here's what we learned about von Mueller. Eggs. This guy was identified by the Maury Terry people as eggs. This is eggs. Okay. And I don't care what they say tomorrow disavowing this because I reported this. Guaranteed that's going to happen. All right. Von Mueller was Dutch German. Okay. Von, according to my contact, who remember was close with Dave and who was close with Ed Snedeker and who knew these people intimately. He knew their relationships with other people intimately. He knew who was coming in and out of the crowd. He said Von met Dave for sure, but he was not a good friend of his. This is humongous. This goes against directly from what Maury Terry said. Maury told us they were best friends. Maury told us they were best friends from the 60s. You know, Maury told us a lot of things that ended up not being true. And I think that I believe Dave Berkowitz's friends who knew him and who were there and who have no reason to lie to me, okay? It's not like these people are seeking publicity or trying to make money off this. In fact, if you notice, none of them have talked until the year 2022. This contact of mine brought up von Mueller's name on his own. I hadn't even remembered this guy's name when he brought it up. Except when he brought it up, then it triggered that memory of mine. He said Von was Ed Snedeker's friend the most. And in addition, my contact never heard the nickname Eggs. Okay. So either there's another person out there or Maury Terry got it wrong. Now, this is from John R. I'll just say that John R is the one that sent me that photograph. Okay. It doesn't really matter. He has identified himself. When in the Comparetto video, he was texting in. People were saying John R. I'm not going to say any more than John R. Okay. And I'm trying to convince John R. to come on the show. He's like 90% there, I think, maybe 85%. But we're going to try to get him on because he actually has the most stories about O'Shaughnessy. He said to me that Von was a nice, quiet kid as I knew him. And he had no knowledge of Von after the early years. And I'm quite surprised of his association with Burke and Carr. So here, Maybeth, this is correct. You are absolutely right. Egg noodles, right? His parents were, Mueller was the brand of egg noodles. So they just called him Eggs. That's how he got that nickname. Okay. So this is major. This is major contradictory stuff. This is exactly why we're doing this. Because we were all reading this book called The Ultimate Evil. And look how much we have shown you just in the last 2 months alone. Forget about the last year. Just in the last 2 months alone. Neto, all of this stuff that we've been doing, right? Smashing the paradigm into a million pieces and rebuilding it with a more realistic view of these crimes. Integrating all of the information that we're learning from the actual people who were there. The actual people who were friends with Berkowitz. Okay? Now, you can still believe the pages of a book. That's cool. I'm not trying to convince you of anything. I'm just reporting what we've heard, and I'll tell you something. My mind is open. I know that Maury Terry lied to us about quite a few things. outright distorted stuff. Okay. In fact, when John R. comes on, if he ever does come on, he has a story about how he met Maury Terry in Oliver's Bar in White Plains, the famous Oliver's Bar. And this was in the 80s. Okay. Now I'm going to tell this story. Maybe he'll tell us again, but I'm going to tell you the story because it's indicative of Maury Terry's the man, who he was. Because we need to look at him too. He walked into the bar. Maury Terry was sitting there. I guess Maury kind of knew him somehow. He knew because this guy was a Yonkers cop. So he sat down, introduced himself to Maury. They had some pleasantries. And this guy said to Maury Terry, he goes, your book's great, but man, that stuff about the process and Manson, why'd you put that in there? Right? Sort of like the same thing that everybody said to Maury. And what Maury did at that moment was very telling. He turned around, he turned his back on John R., and he refused to talk to him from that moment on. Think about what he cut himself off from. He cut himself off from all this information that we're learning about in 2022, right? By that one action of turning his back on perhaps one of the most important eyewitnesses to all of this stuff, John R. That's what Maury Terry did. So perhaps that's why we all learned in that book that it was a satanic cult from Untermeyer linked to Son of Sam, when we have proven that that's not true. There's multiple layers of all this stuff happening in Untermeyer Park. We've shown that there's no 22. We've shown that the story started on Wicker Street. We've shown that the Breslin letters and the Borelli letters relate to the Netto crimes. Even in our last episode, we had Jackie saying that the Netto letters were in block letters and had the Son of Sam symbol on it, for crying out loud. Okay? All these things that Maury never found out about. So this is highly interesting. And I think that I personally am going to go with the people who were there and who knew these people. I'm going to call bullshit on the Eggs story right here and right now. Eggs was not a cult member and was not there. Sorry. Somebody can prove me wrong. Find the people who knew him, just like I did, and find the opposite story. All right. Regarding Ed Snedeker, my contact, again, insists, because remember the famous wedding in Maryland, another thing that Maury Terry was so sure of. He said the wedding was in the Bronx. It wasn't Maryland. Now this has been a point of contention among these guys, because some of them remember a wedding in Maryland and some of them remember the wedding in the Bronx. But this contact here was another person on Team Bronx. He said it was unequivocally in the Bronx, and he said he did not remember Howard Weiss at the wedding. Another thing that Maury Terry. So nobody remembers seeing Weiss there or O'Shaughnessy. Hey, looky here. Here's a video of that wedding. What do we see there? Look at that pretty mug. Good old David Berkowitz with his telltale smile and giggle. You know what? I'm going to rewind that. We're going to see it again. Now, I'm trying to get the rest of this wedding video. I have a line out to it. Nobody else in the world does except for me. We're fact checking you, Maury. We're coming after your information in this book, and I don't mean to sound confrontational, but yeah, Erno, you're absolutely right. He never imagined that I would come out. And let me tell you something. I wanted to meet Maury. I wanted to meet him in 2009. He wouldn't meet me. I had people talk to him. He refused to meet me. So, all of this stuff could have been done with me and Maury together if he had been interested. So now we're getting into the Army. So my contact, so after basic training at Fort Dix was over, before Dave shipped out to Korea, he asked my contact, he said, hey, can you drive me to the Army base? Now remember, they're in Co-op City, right? Can you drive me to the Army base? It's just in New Jersey. So my contact thought they were just going to go over the George Washington Bridge to a Army base, whatever, would be done in half an hour. Dave made him drive 2 hours down to Camden, New Jersey, near Fort Dix. And for what? Just to get a haircut and to sew some patches on his uniform. But he said that after basic training, Dave was still the same exact person. Giggly, smiley, happy-go-lucky, nice guy, no conflict, no problems, absolutely perfectly normal. But he said that a demon took over. There's that word, demon. A demon took over Dave while in Korea. This was kind of interesting. He got a lot of letters from Dave as well. Okay. Just like all of his friends did, all of Dave's friends did. He said that they were very contradictory, that Dave's letters would complain about hippies and long hairs. He would call them leftist anarchists. But at the same time, my contact, who was a leftist and who leaned left, would get supportive letters from Dave praising this SDS, which later became the Weathermen, right? High-end left-wing terrorists, and saying, fight the fight, and you're doing the right thing. Okay, so this is kind of weird and kind of contradictory. But yet this is what occurred. Okay. He said Dave was super disappointed in the Army. The Army was all he ever wanted. He was gung-ho and patriotic when he went in, and he wanted out when he got in. He said he wanted to be expelled from the Army, and he wanted to do it as a conscientious objector. And so this is the reason why he started talking to all the pastors. And that's how he got very religious. And he said that and confirming John Comp and Dapolito and all these guys who got letters from Dave. Dave took a lot of drugs in the Army, including LSD. All right. So now post-Army into the Son of Sam years. So first of all, let me put in the chat. Anybody who wants to, I see that whoever was in here left because I actually forgot about them. My apologies. I told you I'm OCD. Like I can't, it's hard for me to concentrate on too many things at once. So like I totally forgot somebody was in there. So if you want to join in, I'll take calls now. Okay. Because we're basically almost finished with this little pop-up. So, all right. So so this is kind of interesting because this is the post Army years. My contact basically lost touch with Dave after 1971. That Fort Dix incident was the last time he physically saw him. The last time was 71. My contact left Co-op City in 73, and he moved out to Long Island. Okay. So now check it out. Let me just hold on. Let me just get to my next slide. Actually, wait, we got somebody. Hey, we got a guest. We got a guest. We have the one, the only. Let me get Eric.
Hey, how are you?
What's up, my man?
I haven't got the new light up yet, but that's the way it goes. Listen, right. I'm curious about something. About 3 shows ago or 2, we had said, and you said, yes, that's interesting. You just said that the story starts at Wicker Street. Do you mean that's where David Berkowitz begins to be involved? Because if you remember, I questioned the cult or whomever it was said they had to move from another part of Yonkers to where it became Wicker Street, where the car residence is a port from the NATO residence.
Mm-hmm.
What do you mean when you say it begins at Wicker Street?
What I mean is just speaking in terms of the Son of Sam crimes as a general entity. In my opinion, they started on Wicker Street with that terrorist campaign against the Nettos, and then that turned into an orgy of violence that spiraled on itself. This is my theory. Again, I don't have any facts other than what I presented, to base this theory on.
I'm not contrary to what you said. I'm
no, I understand.
Comprehend, because it was said by someone, I don't know who, and it did pique your interest that they were elsewhere in Yonkers and decided to go to another part of Yonkers, and that was Wicker Street.
I don't remember that. We'd have to confer with each other offline and find that out.
It's true. No, Freedom Land. God, I went once. It was beautiful. It was a child's fantasy.
You did?
Yeah, it was like a child's fantasy. You can't believe how beautiful it was. Really, truthfully.
what was your best recollection of Freedom Land?
Just how beautiful it was. I was taken into a different world. It was like a fairy tale that came alive, opening up a very beautiful fairy tale book and entering into it. It
That's
was
super.
it's so sad that then I think it became first before Co-op City. Didn't it become supermarkets and things like that?
Well, it was like a landfill. It was like a garbage landfill, I think. I'm not sure. But
What a
my only experience with something like that, Eric, is a place called Roadside America,
mhm,
which I think might still be there. See, I had family in Pennsylvania in Harrisburg, and whenever we would drive on Route 81 to Harrisburg, all along the side, there's this place called Roadside America, and what it is, it's about the size of I don't know, like a skating rink, like an ice skating rink, and it's a huge train set that's built from America, like a scaled down America, but nothing like Freedom Land, but still
mhm.
super cool.
Yeah, and Maury Terry, do you actually believe? I'm not challenging you. I just want to labor it that he was deliberately lying, or did he just not do enough research? And then you come along and you protract from it. That's history. You do further historical research from what he gave. Do you
Right.
think he was deliberately lying?
I don't want to say I don't want to assign that blame because I can't. How can I? I didn't know the man. I
Yeah,
wasn't in
because
his
I don't
heart.
think he was lying. I just think he didn't know which way to go. He was overwhelmed.
Well, I think he overwhelmed himself personally. I think that here's what I heard about Maury, okay? And I'm just going to say it. And this is what was told to me by his mystery man contact, the guy who showed me where the cross on the tree was. And this guy worked with Maury for years. He said Maury, and again, I'm just reporting what I was told. He said Maury was an abusive bully who lied to everybody around him and who
Mm,
sent everybody on wild goose chases and lied to this person, fooled that person, sent this person in the opposite way. And his assessment was that Maury Terry only wanted to remain in the spotlight. He never wanted the case solved. He only wanted to be the public face of it forever so he could continue going on the shows and making a career out of this. And I have to say that makes sense given what actually happened in the real world, where nothing was ever solved, where his files never saw the light of day, and we're left again with this story that he wrote in 1987 and was updated slightly in 96, but then nothing since then.
that's just the epilogue.
Right.
He had
So it's
said
like,
to me, "There's a lot more," and I got that. I spent the money. I found it cheap. I know how to look,
mhm,
brand new. And I said, "What is it?" It's the same book, but it's the epilogue. Well, the
right.
epilogue is the only one that's added. There's nothing. There's
Right,
nothing.
and the epilogue was highly, highly, disappointing because it again didn't name names, and, so listen, I don't know what to believe. I can't assign a nefarious, motive to this guy.
Mhm,
I can only report what I was told, and I can only show you the internal contradictions from his story and the reality of the street. That's all I can do.
mhm.
So, Eric, anything else before I carry on?
Yeah, you had said that I'm involved with the international conspiracies, but I'm also involved with the concentric area here in
Right.
New York with everything. But I am what has affected me, and I'm going to comment on the last show. I haven't been able to get the words. I think it was one of the best shows you ever had historically, along with the Rothstein files and my doing Chinotti and Hank and others. But
I
specifically,
I agree with you.
I can't get over the fact about what happened to brother John as a boy, John Paul Ranieri, and the fact that the Carr mother had been high level military in Virginia, wasn't she?
Well, we don't know. We know that she was a a corporal in the Marines, which is unusual for a woman in the 1940s. But
Yeah,
we
it
haven't been
was.
able to find out anything
Yeah,
else. But
I just can't believe. I think the family was satanically deranged. It could. This is just my hypothesis. I'm going to go that far. I really do.
we should. I
That they
mean,
were
why
that
not?
they were that they were pro-generational Satanists, just as they were pro-generational cannibals. Because to clean excrement and urine off a little boy, not call his parents or the authorities, something's wrong.
Assuming that story's true.
Yeah, I had said that. I had said that to somebody, Mr. Horner, whom I answered,
Right.
assuming it's true. Where did that come from, by the
It came from well, it came from Maury.
way? Yeah. Well, it's interesting. Somebody I was in contact with had maybe known Brother John. He actually tried to be a priest in Italy.
Hold
Yeah.
on one second. Maybeth said not correct. So what am I not correct on that? Corporal's not a high rank. Okay. I mean, I might be wrong on that. Remember, those car shows were many months ago. I kind of forgot some of
Oh, I
the
don't even know what
heavy
high or
details.
low rank. But anyway, listen, good going with this. Is this person going to be on, or is this
No,
anonymity?
this is it. They don't want to be identified. They had a great life. They have are known professionally, and they don't want to be associated with
That's
this
to be
whatsoever.
respected. I'm trying to help somebody in England, and she complains of BCC. I says, excuse me, some people have a reason for being blind carbon copy. God bless you. When's the subscribe star? Friday?
I actually we postponed it. We're gonna meet this weekend, and we're gonna film this weekend. So the new exclusive will come out by the end of the weekend, most likely.
Okay, and then I'll see you Monday.
You got it. All right,
Yeah.
excellent. Thanks, Eric.
God
I'm gonna
bless you
carry
all.
on. Okay,
Bye-bye.
thanks, Eric. Okay, bye. All right, so Eric Galati, the great Eric, and of course, him and I are having a show this Monday. Manny Monday will be all about new Rothstein recordings that he got. Which are great. So let's close this on out. And if anyone wants to join, I put the everyone has any questions, I put the link in the chat. The contact basically lost touch with Dave after 71. He left Co-op City in 73 and he moved to Long Island. Now it gets a little interesting, folks. So this guy who told me all this he actually got a call from Dave in 1977. So this was the height of the Son of Sam. He said that Dave was still exactly the same. He giggled, he laughed, he was telling funny stories, jokes. He had no indication whatsoever that he was involved in anything nefarious. Real quick, we got Jim Fay. I want to give respect to Jim. Did Von Mueller's license plate numbers come up at the scene from those Bronx fires or Berkowitz? You should know it was Berkowitz, not Von Mueller. I'm not quite sure where you were going with that, Jim. Maybe you were responding to something that I didn't see before. Anyway, this guy Dave wanted to get together. He was calling his old friend from the neighborhood while he was in this heavily satanic shooting spree of Son of Sam, and he was calling his friend. Oh, I remember the story from before with Dave and the interview I did with the guy who was lived with Ace Brown. He said that so there was a guy, Ed, who was with him. And you guys in the member exclusive section will remember that interview, which was actually quite groundbreaking and interesting. This guy Ed, whose uncle lived on Pine Street next to Berkowitz, he walked out one day in 1977, and his car had a dent on it. And there was a note left, and it said, "Hey, I'm really sorry. I dented your car. Here's my number. Call me. I'll take care of it. Signed, David Berkowitz." Right? Which is really, really interesting because here's a guy going out and shooting people left and right, committing all these murders, and he's concerned about he leaves his name and number for a little dent that he put on a car. Okay. So it kind of jibes with this because this guy's saying that in 77, Dave was still the same. He's giggled. He was a nice guy. He wanted to get together. Right. This is extremely interesting stuff. Now, I'm not saying what it all means, but it's just interesting. Now, here's where it gets interesting, even more interesting. The contact told Dave Berkowitz about the clubs in the Hamptons. Does that sound familiar, guys? Remember the note left in Berkowitz's car the night of the arrest, that he wanted to go visit the Hamptons to go shoot up a nightclub. And remember how Maury Terry told us that the Hamptons reference in the note was an oblique reference to Roy Radin, because Roy Radin lived in the Hamptons. No, the actual explanation is a hell of a lot more mundane. The contact told Dave about the Hamptons. He said Dave had never heard of the Hamptons before. It was the first time he was hearing it about the Hamptons in 1977, and they never did meet up. But my contact felt very guilty about telling him about the Hamptons, because he was like, this guy actually believed the full, like pretty much the official story, right? So he was like, yeah, Dave was going to go shoot up the Hamptons. He was going to go shoot up the Hamptons. I was the one that told him about them, right? So anyway, oh, right, Jim, yes. Yes, here we go. One of my sources said that Mueller was involved in the Bronx fires, not Dave. Yes, the guy who told me all this stuff today. He said that von Mueller was suspected of lighting those fires. They never proved it, Jim, but that it was von Mueller, not Dave Berkowitz, who was suspected of that. So let's carry on. And this is great, because now you guys in the audience, you can talk to Jim Fay. Where are you going to hold on? Where are you going to get this other than here under this umbrella of our video series? You're not going to get it anywhere else. Okay. And again, thank you so much for the financial subscribers, the people who actually are making this possible, because without you, this all ends, because I can't afford to do this on my own for free. So again, super, super thanks. And we're on to some very, very important work just in the last month. And I have a feeling the next month or two, we're gonna, I'm like actually going through this period right now where I'm like having a hangover from the Neto stuff, like a post creative hangover almost, where I feel almost depressed. I have to admit. And I had a discussion with people with other, people who are creative about this, that when you finish a project and when you complete something creative, usually you're left feeling down and feeling low. And I have to say, the last week has been tough. I don't know why. We just smashed the paradigm. We just put out this new theory on Son of Sam, which is actually gaining a lot of traction out there in the community. People are like, it's like a light switch turning on in people's heads. They're like, wait a second, that makes a hell of a lot of sense. But for some reason, I'm just like, I don't know, I'm just down. That's one of the reasons why I'm on here tonight. I want to like get my mojo back. So, all right. So after Berkowitz's arrest, everybody was saying that Dave's friends were involved. Okay. The media was calling them, asking them if they were involved. Right. People thought that all these people were involved. Comparetto, Dapolito, Snedeker, all these guys that were friends with Dave. So they made a pact not to talk to the media. Okay. Which is why you never heard from these people before I came along, with very few exceptions. Ed Snedeker did an interview. He said, essentially, this was the takeaway. This was it in a nutshell. He said something happened to Dave to change the way he approached and looked at things. And I have to say that that's really the line that tells it all. Something happened. Do we know what happened? No. Jim Rothstein has his suspicions that something happened to Dave in the military. A lot of people have their suspicions that something happened to Dave in the military. We know that he started taking a lot of drugs, LSD, right? What happened to this guy to turn him from the happy-go-lucky, giggling guy into a murderer, but yet at the same time, while he was murdering, he was still a happy-go-lucky, giggly guy? We got to talk to Berkowitz. At this point, this is the only guy that's going to give us answers. And I'm not going to go in there with some bullshit asking about the process. And God help Berkowitz if I speak to him and he gives me some pamphlet on the process, because that's a troll. That's trolling. Okay. The process had nothing whatsoever to do with Son of Sam. At least we haven't been able to prove it. If you can, by doing the same type of research we have, like not out of a book, but going and speaking to people, if you can prove it, I'll be the first person in line praising you. To use Neo's line, I will be wrong all day long as you're right. I'm a Son of Sam head. I want to know the truth about this crime. But I'm not going about it anymore feeling that it's satisfying enough and good enough to read the pages of The Ultimate Evil and then go regurgitate it out to other people, and then we all circle jerk each other. Okay? That's not good enough anymore. We're doing real time true crime here. And the only thing that's gonna convince me at this point is if somebody actually goes out there and does the work that we've done with the same methodology and prove your story and disprove ours. Okay. So are there anybody who would like to join in? I'm going to give you another couple of minutes. Don't really have anything left to add. While we hopefully get one or two people in here to ask questions, I will say that again, Eric will be on Manny Monday. I'm going to put the links up maybe tonight, probably tomorrow. We have several tens of minutes, I should say, not hours, but many minutes of new Rothstein recordings, new interviews that we've done. And I'll get into it more on Monday, but you all know that, Rothstein's a tough nut to crack. He's a tough interview. He tends to go off on tangents, and keeping him focused is very, very difficult, to say the least. But we tried our best, and we got as much as I think we're going to get out of him regarding Untermeyer Park, Van Cortlandt, Ace Brown, Maury Terry, Son of Sam. So so Eric will be back on Monday, where we're gonna play those tapes and we're gonna comment on them as we go. That should be fun. And Neo and I were planning on another pop-up show pretty soon, because we have a Candlelight Inn controversy. It's another one of these things where Neo went and fact-checked a story out of the Ultimate Evil and found the real story to be 180 degrees opposite from what Maury wrote in the book. And it created a huge stir where people were trying to prove us wrong, and they sent us articles trying to prove us wrong, which only proved us right. So we want to address this controversy and talk more about it, because listen, the sad fact is the dominoes are falling. What we once thought was a strong and solid case about the Son of Sam is crumbling into dust. And a new story is emerging out of that. A story born out of research and fact finding, and showing you the actual people involved. Okay. You saw Jackie Neto the other day. You saw Maria Neto. You heard Sylvia. You heard Diana. Okay. There's not much more we can do to convince anyone if you're not already convinced. But anyway, all right. I don't see anybody. Here we go. Ralph Dude. Let's get Ralph Dude in here. Yo, what's up, Ralph?
Hey, Manny. Good evening. How's it going?
It's going great, man. How you doing?
Good. I'm just finished up work and was tuning into some Manny. I haven't listened to your whole show, but
cool. Right.
I'll go back and listen to what you guys put together today. But just wanted to say I've been very interested in the Neto revelations that you guys have been coming out with. And I think it's good to remind the audience that this doesn't mean that, the official story is true of Son of Sam. And if anything, what you guys have put together kind of more conclusively than anything else rebuts the official story. But
Right.
It's just a different story from the one that people had been used to for a long time.
Right. Exactly. Like, that's why I say you have the official story put forth by the media. You have now the official conspiracy theory put forth by Maury Terry. And now you have this third way put together by us, which I don't know, I'm feeling is very valid. I mean, the Neto story just blew us away, and we weren't going out there looking for it. It just fell into our lap. So Ralph, that's great. Anything else?
Yeah. I mean, I think I was also just going to point out that I think that there's a lot of room for this story to continue to grow and get interesting. I've been very intrigued by Craig's comments on your recent shows that, in his kind of speculation that potentially the Carr family or Sam Carr was, involved in the kind of weird goings on in the Yonkers that you guys have chronicled earlier in your work.
The only thing that I would say is, again, this is all speculation, but the thing that makes me wonder about Sam Carr is the fact that Caveman had interactions with Sam Carr. He called him a prick. The guy was always calling the cops on him. Where was he doing this? Like, Caveman wasn't hanging out at Wicker Street. So like, where was he having interactions with Sam Carr? So that's kind of it. That's kind of interesting.
Right.
But yeah, we don't know for a fact.
And, I would be interested in also kind of seeing in further investigation of the connection of the Carr brothers to the Magical Child Bookshop and potential kind of occult interests on their part, because that may be part of that they were kind of taking acid. They're out there doing weird stuff out on the aqueduct, out at Untermeyer Park. They're messing around with dogs. And it may be that they were introduced to some of these notions of occultism and things like that in potentially down in Manhattan, in places where they were hanging out, and that can kind of tie in some of the elements that Maury Terry had written about in a different way that's more factual.
Yeah, I mean,
And again, that's speculation, but
yeah,
it's an
again,
avenue for investigation.
It's possible, and I'm down with it. And listen, I would love to find the person that saw Mike Carr at the Magical Child, but that's what we need at this point in 2022. It's no longer good enough just to read it or say it. Not that you're saying, and I know you're just speculating, but we need a higher burden of proof. I'm trying to like turn Son of Sam into like to get off out of the kids table and into the adult room. So that's kind of like we just need to find the person who saw Carr and Berkowitz there. And so it's cool to think about. One of the things I've been speculating on, and again, this is just speculation, Ralph, is that because Neo was like, these crimes got weirder and weirder as they went. It was almost like they were hits, right? And a lot of people have speculated that. And I said to him, well, what if after a while, what if after the first murder, after the first two, they were hiring themselves out as a hit squad? You know what I'm saying? Like that could have been too. And that's why the modus operandi changed. And that's why they killed Virginia at 7:30 in the evening, as opposed to Stacy at 2 a.m. and that type of stuff. But it's all fun speculation. But yeah, it's really hard to say.
Right. And, a hunch starts with a little bit of informed speculation.
Right.
And a hunch can turn into a lead, and a lead can turn into a fact. And that's, kind of how it goes. So, I think you guys are kind of on the right track, and these are all interesting, fun areas to get into. And it's just been fun to watch.
Cool. All right, Ralph. Well, listen, I always appreciate your comments and your participation. And of course, I really appreciate your support. So with that, I'll just say thank you so much, and we'll catch you on the next show, Ralph. All right. So here was actually Maybeth. Thanks, Ruby. Can't find the Rothstein book. Is it published? All right. So here's Rothstein's book. Okay. The Way It Was. Now you can clearly see this is like a self-published thing. It even includes recipes for bratwurst. All right. So, but the point is, this is not a published book. This is a vanity book that somehow or other I got a copy of, but you'll never find this in the bookstores or anything like that. So great. Let me see if there's any other questions here. If anyone wants to again join in, I'm gonna sign off in a minute or two, but I'm here for anybody if they want to sign in. I'm just gonna look quickly at the chat, see if there's anything that I didn't get to. Thank you so much, Prophet. Ties all the rabbit holes together. Well, we're trying. We're certainly trying. And all right. Well, I think that's it. I don't think that anyone's joining, and I think that we've done what we set out to do today, which was update you guys on Berkowitz and talk about eggs. So once again, like I know a lot of people were looking forward to the egg story today, and believe me, when I heard that name, I started freaking out. But once again, the pages of the book are not jibing with the reality on the street. And we have to start asking ourselves why, but probably more important, we need to just start recognizing the fact that we didn't get the truth in the ultimate evil. Okay. Probably not even close to it. So make of that what you will and choose your sources wisely. We hope that you have faith in what we're doing here, but we totally understand if you're not. But again, we're all about debate and openness. The only thing I will not countenance and engage in are rude assholes, okay, who want to come in and piss on my barbecue. But if you come at me in a respectful way, right, which is the way that I'm coming at you, then we can commune together, even if we don't agree. We could have a discussion. So that's kind of what we are all about here. All right, guys. So listen, I'm filming another member exclusive, hopefully this weekend. Things are slow now. I just want to say, not only did we just come off this huge um, story of the Nettos, where now we're like, down here again. It's like, where do we go from here? But it's also the dog days of winter. And even though we had the spring like day today, it's very hard to go out and shoot when it's below freezing. The battery freezes up, the gimbal freezes, the camera stops working. It's a nightmare. So things are going to ramp up again soon. We just have to get over this little hump, this little lull in activity. But hopefully you guys stick with me, because I personally think that the best is yet to come. All right, guys. Having said that, we will see you on Manny Monday, unless another real-time true crime pop-up comes up, in which case I'll notify you then. Take care, everybody.